tonight on CBC Vancouver News. Worst day yet. Almost 600 new cases of COVID-19 in BC. Also,
I think what the president needs to do is, frankly, put his big boy pants on.
We love Trump!
As Trump heads to court, Joe Biden widens his lead in the U.S. presidential election. And
I think it's ridiculous. It's so disrespectful.
the grocery store chain that banned its employees from wearing poppies.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. As they count ballots tonight in the U.S., we are tallying an explosion of new COVID-19 cases here in BC. It was another record-breaking day. 589 new cases of the deadly virus, surpassing the record for the daily number of cases set just yesterday. Again, the majority of the cases are in the Fraser Health region, making up 68% of today's total. There are 2 more COVID-19 related deaths to report, pushing our province's total number to 275. There are now 104 people in hospital, 28 of those patients in intensive care, a slight jump from yesterday. 6 new healthcare facility outbreaks have been confirmed, and there's also been a new community outbreak at the Royal Inland Hospital construction site in Kamloops. And there was no fanfare. It happened without any official announcement from the BC government. But as Deb Goebel reports tonight, yesterday the Ministry of Health made wearing a mask mandatory in all of our province's health facilities.
For many, it was hard to understand why. Up until now, the BC government had only been recommending the wearing of masks in healthcare settings. Hospital wards, the cancer clinic, extended care homes, they are, after all, for the most vulnerable among us. If we had to wear a mask on a ferry, how is it we didn't have to wear one in a hospital? But starting now, masks are mandatory in all healthcare settings. For Sina Muscati, a new parent of very premature and immunocompromised twin babies, the new policy is a relief.
We do need that added step to make it mandatory because we can't really risk the lives of these very vulnerable people who can't defend themselves.
Neonatal intensive care units are home to the most vulnerable newborns. In August, the NICU unit at St. Paul's Hospital had to be shut down after one premature baby was diagnosed with COVID-19. Muscati's babies are at Royal Columbian. He took his concerns to Provincial Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry after noticing a few parents refusing to wear masks.
When I wrote to the ministry, they came back to me saying that we all have to be kind and understanding and supportive of each other. And I think they were hoping this sort of voluntary approach would work.
But it's not just hospitals. Places like the BC Cancer Clinic, long-term care facilities and healthcare facilities, programs and services are all now being directed to make mask wearing mandatory, something doctors of BC have been advocating for weeks now.
We're very pleased that this has come down.
Asked why she thinks the BC government waited until now to implement the new policy.
I recognize that there's been a lot of mixed messaging with regards to masking as this pandemic has evolved. Now we know a little bit more and enough to know how we can protect those around us.
Calling masks just one more tool in the toolbox, she says we now know they will save lives. Patients admitted to a healthcare facility or long-term care home will not be required to wear masks in their rooms, but the policy is now in place for everywhere else. Meanwhile, back in New Westminster, Sina Muscati gets ready to head back into the NICU to sit with his 2-month-old babies.
They're doing very well. We're hoping that they'll be home, they said now in December.
Deborah Goebel, CBC News, New Westminster.
Spin class operators are slamming comments tonight by the province's health officer. Yesterday, Dr. Bonnie Henry told British Columbians to get off indoor bikes and find other ways to keep fit. Dr. Henry went as far as to say spin studios are dangerous. As Belpuri reports, the people who run those studios are up in arms.
When a class is actually in session, this spin studio operates very differently than it did before the pandemic. Each rider exercises in individual plexiglass pods spaced 6 feet apart.
They'll take everything they brought in with them, including their full water bottles, their own sweat towels, to reduce those common touch points.
The process starts outside the studio with temperature checks for everyone.
We, bring people in one by one. They have their space. They stay there until the class is over, and then we release the class in an orderly way to give everybody that same spacing on the way out.
Where there used to be 28 bikes, there are now only 13. BC's provincial health officer isn't convinced that's good enough.
Right now, spin classes in Metro Vancouver are dangerous.
Dr. Bonnie Henry says she's never been to a spin class, but knows it's people breathing hard in a confined space.
We know there's been spin classes here in BC where we've had 20 or 30 people being infected.
British Columbians, she says, need to find other ways to exercise. Dr. Bonnie Henry stopped short of ordering spin studios to shut down, but she pointed to Hamilton, Ontario, where 85 cases of COVID-19 are linked to one facility. Here, operators say they've gone to great lengths to make sure staff and riders are safe.
So they have to sign off on all that.
Cycling studio operators say Dr. Henry's statement has left customers uncertain about what to do. Olympic cyclist and commentator Leslie Tomlinson operates 4 cycling studios on the Lower Mainland.
I've been inundated by emails and texts from our riders, from our clients.
Riders, she says, wouldn't come in if they didn't feel safe.
It's a blanket statement that I don't think takes into consideration those people in the industry, in the business of any indoor training, studio training, that have been closely following the guidelines.
Henry's statement, some say, should have come with some direction.
So if there is something that we could be doing differently to allow businesses to continue to operate in this capacity, what are those changes that need to be made so we can do that?
Belle Puri, CBC News, North Vancouver.
And beginning this weekend, the RCMP is going to be patrolling some BC ferries vessels to enforce the rule that now requires all ferry passengers to leave their cars on enclosed vehicle decks. The rule doesn't apply to open or partially enclosed decks where passengers can stay in their vehicles. In March, passengers were allowed to remain in their cars on all ferries because of the risks associated with COVID-19. But BC Ferries says since then it's put its safety protocols in to protect people. If caught not following the rules, Transport Canada can issue a fine to non-compliant passengers. When word spread about grocery chain Whole Foods banning its employees from wearing poppies on the job, not surprisingly, there was an uproar across the country. The U.S.-based chain was under fire from people and politicians all day today. Kimberly Molina now on what ended up happening.
There's not a lot the House of Commons agrees on these days, but this got unanimous support.
That this House condemn Whole Foods and its owner, Jeff Bezos, for banning its employees from wearing poppies on their uniform and demand that the policy be reversed immediately.
The reaction from politicians across the country has been swift and, for the most part, critical.
So I'd like Whole Foods to stop trying to be woke foods and do the right thing, show respect, lest we forget.
This is absolutely unacceptable. The poppy is an important symbol of remembrance, and it's more important than ever that everybody supports the Royal Canadian Legion Poppy campaign this year.
I think it's ridiculous. It's so disrespectful.
I think the employees should probably stand up and do something about that.
I don't see why they should have banned it. I think they should participate in something that's been part of our history and honor that.
In a statement to CBC, Whole Foods says its dress code provides, quote, one simplified and unified policy to ensure the company is prioritizing operational safety. Under that policy, the poppy was not allowed. But the company says it is donating more than $8,000 to the Legion's Poppy campaign in honor of Remembrance Day. In a tweet late this afternoon, the Veterans Affairs Minister said he'd spoken to a Whole Foods executive and employees can now wear poppies at work. But in the U.S., the company still faces a court battle, alleging it banned employees from wearing Black Lives Matter's masks and clothing at work. Kimberly Molina, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, they're, of course, counting ballots in the United States tonight, but the final countdown is on here, right in BC. Elections BC has begun tallying more than 500,000, in fact, 660,000 mail-in ballots. They won't change the ultimate outcome of the provincial election, but they will determine the winning candidates in some tight races. 4 ridings in particular were separated by fewer than 200 votes after election night: Chilliwack-Kent, Abbotsford Mission, Richmond South Centre, and Vernon-Monashee. They're still being processed, and the final tabulation process is expected to take at least 3 days. And there's a reason mail-in ballots take longer to count than those that were cast on general voting day.
On election night, the election officials across the province at a voting place, they've got a box full of ballots. They open it and dump the ballots on the table and then count them right like that. During the final count process, the absentee and mail-in ballots are in a certification envelope and then in a secrecy envelope as well. So the process is a bit more involved.
The total vote tally from all electoral districts likely won't come until early next week. But among the races, as mentioned, that we're keeping an eye on is Abbotsford Mission. The BC NDP are now leading that race. Candidate Pam Alexis leads by nearly 550 votes. Simon Gibson, the incumbent MLA, was in first place on election night. Still many more ballots to be counted, and we'll bring the updates tonight and throughout the weekend. Hate crime investigators are looking into 2 allegedly unprovoked attacks in Vancouver.
These 2 victims were both of East Asian descent, and we're not ruling any other prejudice, bias, or hate elements to these assaults.
On Wednesday afternoon, a woman was walking along Granville Street near Helmken when a man punched her in the face. She fell to the ground and was able to get to a safe place before calling police. On Thursday, another woman was walking to an Evo vehicle near West Georgia and Citadel Parade when a man spat on her cheek as he walked by. Police weren't able to find him. Anyone who may have been a witness is asked to come forward. Fire authorities suspect arson as a cause of a late-night fire at City Centre Hotel in Victoria. Victoria Fire called just before 10 o'clock for a fire at the Capital City Centre Hotel in downtown Victoria. Flames mostly contained to 1 suite, but 4 people had to be rescued from the 4th floor during the blaze. 6 people were injured and taken to hospital. 87 people residing in the building have been displaced as a result of the fire. A 75-year-old man who killed 2 of his neighbors at a West End high-rise has been found guilty of second-degree murder. Leonard Landrick killed his neighbors, a 57-year-old woman and a 51-year-old man, at Ocean Towers complex on July 10th of 2017. A jury convicted Landrick on 2 counts of murder after a trial in BC Supreme Court. Landrick's lawyers are now moving to have him declared not criminally responsible on account of a mental disorder in the wake of the guilty verdict. The weekend is here, Johanna is here, and looks like it's going to be a nice one.
You know what? It's going to be a gorgeous weekend, Mike. And I was thinking so I could sort of allude to my forecast. The bigger the scarf, the colder the weather. So keep that in mind as we head into the winter months. It's chilly out here, and it's going to get even colder over the next couple of days. Let me show you the current temperatures out there right now. Okay, it says 8 at YVR, but there is a bit of a wind chill. And if you're by the water, I'd say cut it by a couple of degrees. And this is the warmest evening that we're going to have for a few nights. This is all thanks to big high pressure sitting just off to our northwest. So the clockwise flow around that is directing some very cold winds down across the province. Nice and cold and clear for almost everyone this weekend, with a few exceptions. And I am watching a little bit of a disturbance overnight tonight. Temperatures dropping down to a 4. Little bit of a cloud rolling in overnight. So if you're up really early, you won't see the moon because the clouds will make for a mainly cloudy sky sort of pre-dawn. Sunshine, though, will quickly return. In fact, by mid-morning, we should be back to the blue skies. There's just a slight risk Very slight risk of an early morning shower, and then that's it. We get back to the blue skies, highs to 8 tomorrow. I've got a very chilly, sunny and sunny Sunday forecast, and I'll have the full weekend and return to rain outlook coming up. But first, a pretty incredible story. So what started as a regular school day for 3 Victoria High School students turned into a life-altering moment. The 3 young men jumped into action to help someone who was suffering an overdose.
And today, the boys received Civic Service Awards.
I want to just extend a sincere thanks and appreciation for your commitment to your school and your commitment to your community.
Victoria's police chief doing the honors, handing awards to Ahmad Al-Shabaab, Al-Bara Al-Homsi, and Majid Sultan. The young men say they heard the noise in the bathroom stall that was unusual, and their instincts kicked in, with one running to find a teacher while the other 2 stayed with the person who ultimately was suffering from an opioid overdose. With the teachers on hand, the man was revived and his life saved. The boys are all relatively new to Canada, having moved from Syria a few years ago.
I feel proud of myself, and I feel thankful that I could help, and I was raised and taught to help anybody that I can and try to help everyone as possible. And when we first came, we also we got lots of help, and from all Canadians, all people, wonderful people, and we will try now to help as much as we can.
Amazing. The boys' families were there to see them receive their award.
Yes, they were, and Al-Homsi joked that he would get rid of his television at home and hang his plaque proudly in its place instead. We don't usually encourage people to get rid of their televisions, but in this case, that probably would be just fine, and good for them. Good for them. Okay, Joe, we're going to get back to you in a little bit with the forecast. If that's the scarf you choose to wear when it's this temperature, I can't wait to see when it gets really cold, but we'll get back to you in just a little bit. And a reminder, you can also watch this newscast live on CBC Gem. Many people are right now. CBC Vancouver is also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Joe Biden leads. His lead grew larger and larger today as he seemed to be on the cusp of claiming the mantle as president-elect. How the Trump campaign intends to fight that every step of the way, next. And thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream tonight. Well, the pandemic has been hard on many businesses, with some seeing a big drop in customers. But as Laura Meter reports tonight, some local PEI businesses have actually seen a growth in demand during this time.
It's packing day at Crystal Green Farms. They're bagging vegetables for orders. When COVID hit, Brian and Kathy McKay worried about their organic farm business, but 2020 has turned out to be their busiest year.
I think people were really interested in buying local and knowing where their food came from even more than they were. Didn't want to go to the stores in some instances.
She says they've done very well over the past few months.
I guess we just were thankful that we were able to keep going and still have a business that we could support ourselves.
At Riverview Country Market, it's a similar story. They're stocking shelves more often because demand is up.
We really noticed a big influx of people that asking for, local greens and local vegetables, a lot of local fruit as well. And I think it's just because people had more time to be more conscious of where they were making their purchases.
You need a receipt? They usually get tourists here too, but say locals made up for that lost business. They also added an online ordering system.
Right after the pandemic started, we were just run off our feet and could barely keep up with the orders that were coming in.
This apple orchard is shut down now, but it was a busy fall. The owner says people like local apples, but many were searching for a safe activity too.
This season was amazing, really. That'd be the word for it. A lot of people want to go out, they want to detox, get rid of some of the anxiety, and they showed up in droves. It was quite surprising.
A Food Island gift card program is also tapping into that desire to support local.
It's been going very well. To date, Islanders have really supported the initiative. The cards sold, the first 5,000 cards sold in 4.5 days.
In the beginning, the idea was to offer the cards for a month, but it's been so successful it will now go for 2 years. And already, sales are close to $1 million. Those involved in PEI's food industries say crowded markets and restaurants may be a thing of the past, but people are seeking out other ways to buy, and they hope the trend to support local continues. Laura Meter, CBC News, Charlottetown.
Okay, still lots more to come tonight. We've got lots of coverage of the U.S. presidential election coming up in just a few moments. Dan Burrett will break all the latest key state numbers down for us, so stay right here. Be right back. Joe Biden appears to be on the cusp of winning the U.S. presidency tonight. Today, he gained the lead over Donald Trump in 2 more undecided states, Georgia and Pennsylvania. That means he is now leading in 4 of the 6 states that remain too close to call 3 days after the election. But as Rafi Bouchakanian reports tonight, it seems the current president isn't prepared to leave the Oval Office without a long, bitter fight.
We love Trump! We love Trump! The vocal support for Donald Trump continues in states where the vote count does too. Energized in Arizona last night by a star of the far-right media.
The world is watching the example of Arizona. The president is watching the example.
Even today, in the face of likely defeat, Trump supporters took to the streets of undecided states. The Trump campaign, too, keeping up the attack on the integrity of the election, saying in a statement today, "This election is not over. The false projection of Joe Biden as the winner is based on results in 4 states that are far from final." But Democrat supporters were already starting to celebrate. Top officials also telling the president it's time to move on.
I think what the president needs to do is, frankly, put his big boy pants on. He needs to acknowledge the fact that he lost, and he needs to congratulate the winner.
But even as Biden's camp sets the stage for a primetime address to the nation and Secret Service protection around him is stepped up, the Republicans are trying to raise $60 million to help fund multiple legal battles.
We intend to ensure that every lawful voter has their vote counted in accordance with the law, that observers are granted the access they are due under state law, and that any irregularities that have occurred, whether by malicious intent or incompetence, are fully investigated.
A few Republican officials are breaking rank with the president, calling his allegations about a stolen election disturbing. But with nearly 70 million votes so far, almost half of those cast, Donald Trump is offering no hint he would concede. And this nation is sure to remain firmly divided long after this presidential election is finally decided. Rafi Bouchakanian, CBC News, Washington.
And our Dan Burrett joins us now live to break down just how close some of these races are, channeling his inner John King in the Magic Wall game tonight.
For a 4th night.
Well, exactly.
There you go. I get slightly more sleep, though.
Yes, you do.
Slightly.
But
yes,
a lot
indeed.
of close races for sure.
Unbelievable. Welcome to night 4, Mike, and everyone else. The election count, same as it was yesterday. There it is. Democrat Joe Biden has 253 votes. Republican President Donald Trump has 214. They need 270 to win the presidency. First, to Pennsylvania. Let's see what's going on there. Joe Biden leading with 49.6%, Trump at 49.3%. 98% of the expected votes have been counted. If Joe Biden wins Pennsylvania, he wins the presidency. But local officials have warned it could still take several days to finish reporting Philadelphia's 40,000 or so remaining ballots. And Philadelphia has been leaning rather heavily Democrat. Let's go to the South now in Georgia, where today Joe Biden took a slim lead as officials started processing mail-in ballots. He stands at 49.4%, Donald Trump at 49.3%, and the expected vote count is at 99%. Keep in mind, if there is less than a 0.5% point difference in those vote totals, the law there says there must be a recount. Democrats have not won in Georgia since Bill Clinton in 1992. Over in Arizona now, where Biden maintains a slim lead, 49.7%, Donald Trump at 48.8%, the expected vote count at 90%. Biden's lead stood at about 41,000 votes throughout the day. The Associated Press and Fox News have called Arizona for Biden, but CBC News still considers it too close to call and is waiting to make that determination. That explains why some of you have been asking why the vote discrepancy in those vote totals between some other networks and some affiliates and us. That's the reason why. And finally, Nevada. Joe Biden maintains a relatively small lead over Donald Trump, 49.8 to 48%. 87% of the expected vote is in there. Election officials there said today a county has an extra 63,000 mail-in ballots to be processed over the next few days, then 60,000 more provisional ballots to be processed later. They say they're stressing accuracy, not speed. We know people want the results. They are stressing they need to be accurate. Amid all this, Joe Biden was expected to make some kind of statement from Wilmington, Delaware tonight. He has yet to do so. We'll let you know if he does. President Trump vowed to continue his legal fights, making still baseless accusations about voter fraud. Again, Joe Biden only has to win Pennsylvania or 2 out of 3 of Georgia, Arizona, or Nevada in order to take the presidency. Donald Trump's path, much more challenging at this moment. Mike.
All right, Dan, thanks very much. Dan Burrett with us live again tonight. 2 men are under arrest in Philadelphia after police received a tip. They were armed and near the convention center where votes are being counted in the presidential election.
At this time, we do not have indications that the story is bigger than these 2 individuals. We do not have indications of that nature at this time.
A silver Hummer with Virginia license plates was parked at the location where police say they found the men Thursday. It had a window sticker supporting the right-wing conspiracy theory QAnon. The men did not have permits for the guns, and they have been charged. As Dan showed us, Biden may have taken the lead in Georgia today, but it's a very slim margin. So close, officials there are confirming there will be a recount. CBC's Katie Simpson is in Georgia tonight.
It's likely going to be days before a winner is officially declared here in the state of Georgia. And that's because the race is so close that the Secretary of State, the person overseeing the election process, has declared that there will be a recount. Now, Donald Trump had been leading here until about 4 o'clock in the morning. Absentee ballots that had been outstanding, as they were counted, Joe Biden continued to increase in his support and eventually overtook Donald Trump. The Trump campaign has complained about widespread voter fraud. However, state officials say there's no evidence of that.
When you have a narrow margin, little small things can make a difference. So everything's going to have to be investigated to protect the integrity of the vote. Our office intends to do that. And like I said, if you get a wide margin, it doesn't matter as much. Narrow margin, it does. We are literally looking at a margin of less than, a large high school. So we understand that in this state, the county officials are aware of that. Our investigators are aware of that. So it's an important thing to protect the integrity of this election from all sides.
If Joe Biden is able to hold on and win Georgia and flip this state from red to blue, there are a couple of reasons why. Stacey Abrams is one. In 2018, she ran as the Democratic candidate for governor, and even though she lost that race, her race brought a lot of attention to issues around voter suppression, and she's worked with a number of organizations to eliminate some of those challenges and get more people registered to vote, helping increase the turnout for Democrats. Another is here in Clayton County. Representative John Lewis, the late civil rights icon, voters in this community turned out in big numbers for Joe Biden, helping push him ahead into the lead today. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Morrow, Georgia.
Social media has been rife with misinformation and disinformation throughout the campaign, and it hasn't stopped since Election Day. Major companies like Facebook and Twitter have taken steps to try to counter some of that. but their actions have not helped stem the spread completely. Thomas Dagla looks at the damage viral falsehoods can cause and why cybersecurity officials are keeping a close watch.
This is not a fair election.
There are plenty of dubious videos out there that would have you believe U.S. election officials really are up to something. Take this one, shot at a vote counting center in Detroit.
You wouldn't be able to trust that just because some ballots could fly off the back.
Purporting to show a man wheeling a wagon carrying fraudulent ballots.
Wow!
Except a local TV station easily debunked that video.
The wagon, we have it right here. This is what it looks like. It was carrying, as it is now, equipment for our crews who were working long hours.
Stop the steal!
Those online rumors are having a real-world impact. Facebook just took down a group organizing protests claiming the election was being stolen. 365,000 members had joined in just one day.
Disinformation can spread quite rapidly and then be screenshot and shared again and again through different accounts and via different networks.
Twitter and other platforms may label misleading posts, but there are ways around the filters. Consider this Trump tweet, #BidenCrimeFamily, a slogan used to spread false claims. Notice family is misspelled, likely on purpose.
In an attempt to get around platform mitigation, because that's the power of these kind of viral pieces of misinformation. Once they're stuck in there, they sound correct.
We are not prepared to give that number.
This press conference disrupted with that potent slogan.
The Biden crime family stealing this election. The media's covering it up.
Illustrating how those words can spark danger. So it's no wonder why the head of U.S. cybersecurity had this warning.
I'd ask all Americans to be patient, to treat all sensational and unverified claims with skepticism.
They are watching for trouble amid an unresolved election. Thomas Dagl, CBC News, Toronto.
As Ontario plans to roll back restrictions in a number of public health units tomorrow, one region will stay on high alert. As Lorenda Redekop reports, Brampton, and a particular concern, Brampton. Lorenda Redekop with more.
If you look at the positivity rates, they're going through the roof. You look at the William Osler, ever since this has started, I've never had a call from William Osler saying, hey, we're becoming maxed out. And at the end of the day, they just have to hunker down. They have to hunker down and start following the protocols.
The CEO of that health system says he worries this could be the tip of the iceberg, with 115 patients at Brampton Civic Hospital testing positive, meaning it's down to one person per room. Last night, they reached out for help, worried some patients may have to be put in the hallways. Test positivity rates have skyrocketed.
The numbers that we're seeing in Peel and specifically Brampton, they're just going through the roof. It's out of control right now, and we have to react.
The Premier says plans for reopening in Peel had to change. In the new color-coded system, the region was set to move into orange, restrict. Instead, it's in the red zone, the most severe before a lockdown. Still, restaurants will be able to open to indoor dining with a maximum of 10 people.
In a restaurant in Brampton, they're not.
The mayor says restaurants and gyms aren't the problem, that cases seem to be spreading through workplaces, like the trucking industry and in factories. He wants more help from other levels of government.
We've been asking for 2 months for an isolation center from the federal government, like they provided to the city of Toronto for people in precarious employment, essential workers, truckers, people working in food processing who are getting COVID in higher numbers and can't afford to isolate.
This group of friends was glad for the surprise warm November weather, allowing them to be outside more and also get together safely.
We had one restaurant meal, two in the last 6 months on patios, and but in terms of going into a restaurant, I don't see that in my future for a long time.
For myself, I wouldn't maybe go in one, but I think the age, you've got to leave something open for some of the ages, I think, to, at least live their lives somehow.
The Ontario Hospital Association calls the plan for reopening reckless right now. It would like to have that decision reversed, and it says it's going to be providing its analysis to the province next week. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Brampton.
It is backbreaking, dirty, and tedious work. So why do so many head into the bush every year to plant trees? And what will drive you to plant 1 million of them over 11 years? That's next.
Chemistry is here in the photographic plate. In January, Dr. Fred Nultman of Montreal will be talking about the reactions which make for a good photograph. The chemical reaction which is affected or produced by light. In this way, it's rather like photosynthesis, the way in which plants live. Chemistry and light, chemistry and light, part of the nature of things. And indeed, when our chemistry is disturbed or changed, some very strange things happen.
This is the way a spider usually makes his web. But give the same spider a tiny amount of a chemical which distorts its nervous system, and this happens. Giving drugs to alter the behavior of animals is one thing. Giving them to man is another. This drawing was made by an artist who's just been given a drug which will progressively alter his personality. He will redraw the same subject as the drug takes hold.
These things happened when a man was given a drug. Suppose that his own body chemistry produced the same result. Would he be insane? Well, this idea lies behind research in schizophrenia at the University of Saskatchewan, and we'll be doing a program on that within the next few weeks. Spiders and man. There's another animal ally in this continuous search to find the nature of things.
A hibernating groundhog. His life processes slowed almost to a standstill as he waits out the cold of winter. How does he do it? Doctors are studying hibernation to learn more about how to lower the body temperature of a human. They lower his body temperature with machines like this one, so that he can better withstand surgery, which must temporarily stop his heart. These machines, devised by engineering and technology on the basis of the pure sciences, physics, chemistry, and biology. This relationship between engineering and science is a very important one. This program will explore it in detail later.
Some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News. Dr. Bonnie Henry is reporting a record number of COVID-19 cases for the second straight day. 589 new cases, along with 2 additional deaths. 104 patients are in hospital, 26 more than last Friday, 28 in intensive care. And Dr. Henry is holding a rare Saturday news conference at 1 o'clock tomorrow.
That this House condemn Whole Foods and its owner, Jeff Bezos, for banning its employees from wearing poppies on their uniform and demand that the policy be reversed immediately.
And after a Canada-wide uproar, that no poppy policy for employees was reversed by U.S.-based Whole Foods. The chain had said poppies weren't allowed under its recently updated uniform policy, which affects employees at its 14 locations across Canada. But the company wouldn't say why initially. Earlier today, Whole Foods backed down on the no poppy policy.
Well, for a few months every year, thousands of people will head into BC's wilderness to plant trees.
But unless you've tried the job yourself, you likely don't have a clear sense of what goes into it. As the CBC's Rafferty Baker reports, the industry, culture, and labor of the tree planter is the subject of a new documentary.
It's just a completely different, crazy world.
Tree planting is a job that takes you out of society and into a different world. You become a member of a strange clan.
In Canada, everybody kind of knows a tree planter, but we don't really know what those 3 months that they spent in the woods looked like.
Bumstead wanted to give people a sense of what it takes to do the job. His new documentary is called 1 Million Trees.
Honestly, it is one of the most accurate depictions I've seen of tree planting.
1 million trees is a number most planters won't reach. It takes years to achieve.
I've planted, I think it's 453,000 trees.
Planter Erin Bross has reached 1 million. It came this year toward the end of her 11th season. Her 1,000th tree was cause for a little celebration.
I tied a little bow around it and sat down and popped a bit of champagne and sat there for, maybe 5-10 minutes.
The job has a way of making highs and lows more extreme. It can be a grueling test of stamina and determination. It's done in beautiful wilderness that's been marred by logging that makes the planting industry possible.
I think most people's first impression is that you are working in kind of a natural wasteland in the middle of what's otherwise looks like a paradise.
For most planters, 1 million trees is not an attainable goal.
I don't think I was that tough. You have to be very tough and strong-willed and just be able to keep going and get through it. And you're planting in the rain, you're planting in the snow, and I would just get so cold and I didn't want to be cold anymore.
It's really all the mental game that's what really breaks people, I think, more than the physical a lot of the time. So yeah, I think tree planting is 100% mental.
Bumstead says his documentary is a bit of a celebration of tree planters. It's an exploration of the culture and characters, but it also looks at the industry as a whole.
I think it'll hopefully pique more people's interest, especially getting a bit better of an idea of what it actually is before they go into it.
Rafferty Baker, CBC News, Vancouver.
And you can watch the documentary 1 Million Trees on CBC television this Saturday at 8. And of course, you can watch it anytime you like online at CBC Gem. Joe, it's backbreaking, tough work. I'd probably be whining the whole time. I know a few people who've done it. Have you done anything like that?
No, but my sister did it for one summer. And what we heard is absolutely true. It is all mental. So her and I are going to be watching that for sure. But the relationships you make are, almost worth it, I think.
For sure. All right. Joe, we'll talk to you in just a second with the weekend forecast. It is a new initiative outside of Toronto aimed at replacing police tasked to do mental health checks. Who's behind the initiative? Next.
Hi, my name is Ken Onagi, and I'm the club president here at the Assiniboine Memorial Curling Club. And we're here today to raise funds for the Canadian Legions. With Remembrance Day less than a week away on the 11th, we're here to raise funds for the National Poppy Drive. It's a program that has been really suffering because of the pandemic. Our veterans aren't able to go out and distribute poppies properly, so we thought a COVID-free or COVID-friendly poppy drive where people just drive up, pick up their poppies, and are nice enough to donate funds for the veterans. Thank you for supporting our veterans. With our curling club having such close ties to our military, it's important for us and it's important for society to remember that these people sacrificed their lives for our country, and anything we can do to honor them is something that us as a community needs to do.
Hi, my name is Phil Otis. I've been a past president of the Charleswood Legion for 3 years and a Legion member for over 40. Thanks for coming out and supporting the veterans. Thanks to the curling club here at Assiniboine. They volunteered their time and their space so that they could help honor the veterans and have this drive-through.
Thank you so much for your donation.
With COVID and specifically with the Code Red restrictions, our curling club is shut down. Like many businesses, we're suffering as well as everybody else. And the veterans are in the same situation as well. Our legions and our veterans organizations are also suffering financially. So if we can spread a little bit of positive energy out there and get through this as a community, then we're happy as a curling club to do so.
Hi, how are you, Randy?
It has exceeded all expectations, and it just shows the generosity of the community at large, and shows that people do really care about our veterans.
Unfortunately, we are in the COVID crisis. We can't do too much right now in Manitoba. In Winnipeg area, the legions are closed. But those people that do think of veterans, I would just ask, even if they're not attending a ceremony, just to stand at 11 o'clock in the morning of the 11th day, bow their heads and think about what these veterans have done for their country. I mean, it's these veterans that have made the country what it is today, and we should be honoring and remembering them.
The Market Report is brought to you by FortisBC. We've got even bigger rebates.
Rebate?
Whoa! On select high-efficiency equipment for business, but only for a limited time.
Authorities say the number of dead or missing in the hurricane-turned tropical storm that slammed parts of Central America this week has now soared to well over 100. With roads and bridges washed away, the Guatemalan military used its only helicopter to airdrop aid packages. It's too late for one remote mountain village region where 150 people vanished in mudslides. In Honduras, rivers overflowed and torrential rains loosened cliff sides, filling streets and homes with meters of debris and taking an emotional toll on those affected. In Nicaragua, homes have been leveled by strong winds and high water. The storm is expected to regain strength as it moves toward Cuba and southern Florida this weekend. Not a good situation in Central America, that's for certain. Now, I know you are going to talk to us about some chilly temperatures we are expecting here, but back east, it's hot. Well, okay, not hot, but it's warm.
I think you could even use hot.
Okay.
I mean, we're talking 20s for a weekend. I mean, that's definitely getting to the point where no jacket outside, patio weather. Take a look at the pictures today across the Greater Toronto area where temperatures were in the mid-teens. So you're right, warm, not hot for today. But this is well above the seasonal, around 8 or 9 for this time of the year. So already 10 degrees above seasonal today. Look at that. People out really doing very summer-like activities, and as we head into the weekend, getting even warmer. That's where we're likely breaking records, and not just for Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, all the way up to parts of the Maritimes feeling this heat, thanks to a very strong southwesterly push. Here are those max temperatures today across southern Ontario and southern Quebec, but as we head into the weekend, getting an even stronger southwesterly push. So yeah, we're dealing with scarf weather, and we'll let Toronto have one break. They've had a pretty rough fall so far. We're also tracking a pretty big winter storm for Alberta and Saskatchewan. Snowfall and winter storm watches and warnings in place. It is going to be full blizzard conditions for our friends east of the Rockies over this weekend. A high impact situation. We could be talking widespread power outages and tough driving on the roads. We're pretty clear out here. A few flurries tracking down across our province for tomorrow morning. Just that slight risk in our forecast. But as we head into Saturday afternoon, clearing right out with highs back up to 8, coming down to a 2 overnight, and then sunny skies for Sunday as well. I think that's going to be our coldest evening Sunday overnight into Monday, but cold and crisp, and we still have a lot of the leaves on the trees. It is going to be a stunner of a weekend if you can think of a nice way to enjoy it outside. The rain does move back quite quickly for Monday. Some of the early models with those overnight lows getting close to freezing bring a few flakes in the forecast. I'll be following that closely, and you should be following my scarf choice closely, I guess, to see what happens next week, but hopefully we can all enjoy the sunshine.
Yes, keep that fabulous scarf handy. We'll watch for you on Instagram and Twitter over the weekend. Thanks, Joe.
Sounds good.
Well, a new pilot project in Scarborough, Ontario is dealing with mental health calls and wellness checks in a different way. They'll be done by Indigenous-led crisis response teams instead of police. Native Child and Family Services of Toronto is behind the proposal. And as Philip Lee Shannock reports, it comes in the wake of calls to defund the police.
When police showed up at Regis Korchinski-Paquette's High Park apartment, it was for a domestic incident. But those in the Black and Indigenous communities say the call didn't need to end in the 29-year-old falling to her death. While officers were cleared of any wrongdoing, they believe generations of poor relations with police may have played a part.
When a member of our community sees a uniformed officer, there's an intergenerational impact that occurs there for them, and that traumatizing reaction can really change the way that an encounter goes.
Her death sparked calls to defund the police and reallocate that money to other frontline services. A pilot project planned for Scarborough will have Indigenous-led crisis teams respond to some calls instead of police.
Wellness checks, mental health crisis, domestic violence, low-level disputes, other areas where we know police may not really need to be involved and where the situation could be managed through culturally trained, trauma-informed practitioners at Native Child.
It's still in the planning stages, but Toronto police are supportive of the experiment.
You know, we do recognize that in certain circumstances, police involvement is required, and when required, we would then have a mechanism to notify police and have them involved.
And handing off some services from police to community organizations is something that criminologists have looked at.
Those individuals are able to help kind of de-escalate situations. They're able to understand better, maybe have a little bit more patience with a lot of different problems or issues that are going on. And especially if they're plain clothes, they're not armed, they're not perceived as an officer or that type of response. It can also have a common effect.
And a visit by these workers is less likely to leave a stigma that could jeopardize such things as employment prospects down the road than if police got involved.
Being able to perceive somebody who's there maybe to help them, to listen to them, to not judge, to not pull them into the criminal justice system.
Details of the pilot project will go before City Hall this month, and the service could launch in the spring, depending on funding. Philip Lee Shannock, CBC News, Toronto.
She is 93, lives in a senior's home, but she's still giving back to her community. Who is this grandma knitting up a storm for? Find out next.
I do everything by hand here.
Chef Ivan Chan felt lucky to be in the competition called the Great Canadian Kitchen Party. That he won it was icing on the cake. This was his winning entry, the Peking Duck Supreme, a multi-layered dish topped with Acadian sturgeon caviar.
It pretty much put us on the map, and I believe I'm the first Chinese cooking chef to being invited or even placed in the competition. So I think as a guy who cooks Chinese food mainly for my restaurant, and to me, it's just a dream come true. Well, literally just came out of the oven being rested.
A dream come true for the chef who opened his restaurant, The Orient, 5 years ago to follow his passion for cooking. He
He also wants to create works of art that go beyond what you find at the mall for Chinese food.
I always want to prove that Chinese food can be at that kind of stage and that top-end culinary level, which typically you'll hear French and Italian food. Just love what I do.
In his small kitchen, you won't find a big freezer. He uses only fresh ingredients. He started cooking as a young boy back in Hong Kong at his family home, learning recipes from his grandmother.
And my grandmother, every Saturday night, she never works Saturday night because she makes sure she will have everybody invite to her house and 2 big round tables, which pretty much the size of the whole house, and she will make the best banquet-style food, for the whole family.
He now brings his grandmother's knowledge to his kitchen. Chef Ivan is featured in the latest issue of the magazine Curated. He's taking part in this month's Great Nova Scotia Food Festival that runs throughout November. It's a benefit for Feed Nova Scotia. In a province with many great chefs, Chef Ivan Chan can be added to the list. Colleen Jones, CBC News, Halifax.
The St. Lambert Golf Club was supposed to close last week. Instead, the warmer weather has it extending its season, and it's meant an influx of golfers hoping for one last shot at the links.
We're being spoiled.
I'm very happy about it. We can play more golf.
I think we're blessed with that kind of weather. And hopefully we will be playing till Sunday. Sunday's the last day.
Today, the temperature reached 17 degrees at a time when the average is usually around 7 or 8. Summer seems to be making a belated last gasp in November. But that's not all. Temperatures on Tuesday could hit 20. If that happens, it will be the latest it's ever been that hot. No matter what, people are taking advantage. Golf, tennis, skateboarding, even lunching outside. A real gift, considering the cold weather will be back later next week. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Catch the Vancouver Asian Film Festival, a celebration of diversity in film and the Asian diaspora. Enjoy Canadian and international films from the comfort of your home. Get your tickets at vaff.org. And CBC Vancouver returns as exclusive media sponsor of the Corleone Men's Choir. Don't miss their upcoming digital concert, Remembrance with Corleone, on November 10th. Learn more at corleone.org.
While many long-term care residents were on lockdown during the pandemic, one 93-year-old woman in Toronto found her own creative way to help a cause close to her heart.
Yes, she became legally blind 5 years ago, but she hasn't let that get in the way of her giving back.
Sometimes I fall asleep while I'm knitting, and then that is kind of a disaster. I'm legally blind, so I cannot do very many things, but I can listen to tapes and I knit, so that really is my pastime. Winters are cold in Canada, and I thought with teenagers being out on the street that it might be a good thing for them to have warm ears. And I chose the teenagers because I have a granddaughter who was living on the streets.
She's the tiniest woman, but her heart is just so big. My mom's always knitting, always. And at the very beginning of when the COVID restrictions, she phoned me and asked me, Patty, can you buy me some wool? I've run out of wool or yarn. And so I replied, sure. Can't say no to your mom, sure, I'll get you yarn, and hung up, and then thought, I know nothing about knitting. And then I went online to my community group, the Bloor West Junction High Park community group on Facebook, and I just made a little blurb saying my mother's knitting hats for Covenant House, and she's run out of yarn. Within half an hour, I had 6 women stepped up and messaged me with their address.
Oh, Patty, thank you so much. They're
My
beautiful.
pleasure.
These small acts of kindness, they go a long way, and they're so heartfelt. And it's really what we need right now, especially in these times. So it may look like a small act, but it means a lot.
It feels good. It just is a sense of accomplishment. You know, it is maybe a drop in the bucket, but it is, I think, helpful for the people.
Nice stuff. I wonder if she's a knit one, purl twice knitter.
Oh, yeah.
Not that I know much about knitting.
Of course you would have a knitting saying.
Well, I fear it's becoming a lost craft. I mean, you don't really hear about it. And you know what? Your scarf, I wonder if it's a knit one, purl one scarf, because I'm told.
I'm so pleased we could wrap up our scarf knitting themed show on such a lovely note. Who knew it would be a knitting themed show?
Exactly.
Love it.
Okay, we're going to knit one, purl twice out of here. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.